The morning sun glimmered off the glossy hood of a black luxury car as it glided to a stop outside the Royal Crest Hotel, the crown jewel of a hospitality empire known for elegance and perfection. Its marble pillars reached skyward, gold-trimmed glass doors revolving non-stop as guests entered and exited, their laughter echoing across the courtyard. From the back seat, the car door opened slowly. Out stepped a woman dressed in quiet power, a tailored cream suit, minimal jewelry, and eyes that carried both grace and authority. Her son, no older than 8, followed closely, clutching a small backpack and looking up at the Grand Hotel with awe. "Is this really ours, Mom?" he asked, his voice filled with innocent pride. She smiled softly. "It is, sweetheart. Every brick, every chandelier. I built it from the ground up." But as they approached the grand entrance, the world around them began to shift, not physically, but in the way people looked at them. The valet's polite smile faded into uncertainty. The doorman hesitated before holding the door open, and behind the front desk, 2 employees, the receptionist and a young security guard, exchanged quick, uneasy glances. Their eyes didn't see a CEO. They saw someone who, in their minds, didn't belong. The woman walked to the counter with quiet confidence. The receptionist, a neatly dressed woman with a fixed corporate smile, greeted her in a tone that was more mechanical than warm. "Good afternoon. Can I help you?" "Yes," the woman replied, her voice calm. "I have a reservation under the name Elaine Porter." The receptionist blinked, her smile stiffening. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" "Elaine Porter," the woman said again, this time slower. Watching the other woman's face closely, the receptionist turned to her screen, fingers tapping rapidly. A few seconds passed before she frowned. I don't see any booking under that name." Elaine's brow furrowed slightly. "That can't be right. Check again. It's a presidential suite. I booked it myself." Behind her, the security guard shifted his stance, inching closer as if something might go wrong. A few guests nearby began to notice. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the receptionist said, her tone tightening, "but we don't have any reservation for you. Are you sure you're at the right hotel?" Elaine's son tugged gently on her sleeve. "Mom, it's okay. Maybe we can wait." But before she could answer, the receptionist interrupted, lowering her voice. "Look, this establishment is very exclusive. We can't just let anyone walk in here claiming they own the place." The words hung in the air like smoke. Elaine stared at her, her calm composure slowly giving way to quiet disbelief. "Anyone," she repeated softly. The receptionist looked uneasy, but doubled down. "Ma'am, if you don't have proof of a booking, I'll have to ask you to step aside. There are other guests waiting." The young boy's eyes darted around as people began to stare. He could feel the tension, even if he didn't understand it. Elaine took a slow breath, steadying herself. "Call your manager," she said quietly, but before the receptionist could reach for the phone, the security guard stepped forward. "Ma'am, if there's an issue, I can escort you outside while we sort this out." "Escort me?" Elaine's voice was almost a whisper, her tone controlled but sharp. "Do you even know who you're talking to?" The guard's expression hardened. "I know you're disrupting the lobby." A few guests murmured, pulling out their phones. The receptionist folded her arms, trying to appear professional but failing to hide her irritation. Elaine's son clung to her hand now, his voice trembling. "Mom, why are they being mean?" She looked down at him, her expression softening for a moment. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "people forget what respect looks like." Then, turning back to the staff, her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in deep disappointment. "I'll leave," she said finally, "but I promise you, this moment will not be forgotten." The receptionist exhaled with relief. "Thank you for understanding, ma'am." Elaine turned away without another word. The boy followed her, glancing back one last time at the marble counter where his mother had just been humiliated. As the revolving doors closed behind them, a whisper ran through the lobby. The receptionist leaned toward the security guard, smirking. "Can you believe that?" Claiming she booked the presidential suite, the guard chuckled. "People will say anything for attention." Neither of them noticed the hotel's logo gleaming on the keychain in Elaine's hand, her initials engraved in gold. EP. Outside, the luxury car door opened again. Her driver looked startled to see her return so soon. "Everything all right, madam?" he asked. Elaine paused for a moment, taking in the sight of her own name carved into the hotel sign above her. Her reflection glinted faintly in the glass. A woman who'd built an empire but was just treated like a stranger in her own house. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Not yet," she said, "but it will be." The car door shut softly behind her, the sound echoing like a quiet promise. And as the black vehicle rolled forward, the camera lingers on the hotel entrance on the receptionist, still smiling to the next guest, unaware that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her career, because the woman she just turned away wasn't a guest. She was the owner. And soon, everyone inside would learn exactly who they had just humiliated. The lobby of the Royal Crest shimmered under the glow of its crystal chandeliers. Soft piano music filled the air, mingling with the quiet chatter of wealthy guests, sipping champagne and waiting for their cars. Everything was calm, polished, and perfect in Everton till Elaine Porter and her son stood at the reception desk. Every head in the lobby seemed to turn. The air grew thicker with judgment, curiosity, and unspoken whispers. Elaine's son clutched her hand tighter. His voice was small, almost trembling. "Mom, why are they looking at us like that?" She bent slightly, her calm tone wrapping him like a shield. "It's all right, baby. Some people only see what they expect to see." The receptionist leaned across the counter, her fake smile now gone completely. "Ma'am," she said sharply, "I've told you already, there is no reservation under your name. You'll need to step aside for paying guests." Elaine straightened, her posture radiating quiet authority. "I am a paying guest," she said. "Check again under Elaine Porter, Presidential Suite." But before the receptionist could reply, a tall man in a dark blue suit approached the lobby manager. His name tag read Mr. Clarkson, and his walk carried the self-importance of someone used to giving orders, but not receiving them. He stopped behind the counter, giving Elaine a quick, dismissive glance before turning to his employee. "What's going on here?" The receptionist exhaled loudly, relieved. "Sir, this woman is claiming she has a reservation, but I can't find anything in the system. She's becoming difficult." Clarkson's eyes narrowed as he looked Elaine up and down. "Is that so?" he asked slowly, his voice dripping with practiced politeness. "Ma'am, this is a 5-star establishment. Perhaps you've made a mistake and booked one of our partner hotels instead." Elaine's expression didn't flinch. "I know exactly where I booked, Mr. Clarkson. I'd like you to check again under Elaine Porter." Clarkson raised a brow, his lips curling into a faint smirk. "Porter, you say? As in the Porter Corporation? Interesting choice of name." Guests nearby chuckled softly, not realizing the irony of it all. Elaine's son frowned. "She's not pretending. That's our name." Clarkson sighed dramatically. "Ma'am, please don't involve your child in this. It's embarrassing for everyone." That was the moment the tension in the room turned razor. Every whisper stopped. Even the pianist's hands hesitated over the keys. Elaine looked around the lobby at the faces, watching her. Some pitying, others mocking. She saw the smartphones raised discreetly, recording, and yet, she didn't raise her voice. Her tone was calm, steady, but heavy with quiet authority. "I see," she said. "So, when someone doesn't fit your picture of wealth, you assume they're lying." Clarkson's jaw tightened. "No one's assuming anything. But we do have standards here." "Standards," Elaine repeated, almost to herself. "I helped build those standards." Clarkson chuckled dismissively. "Of course you did." He turned to the guard. "Please escort this lady and her son outside. She's disturbing the other guests." The guard hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, maybe we should. That's an order," Clarkson snapped. Elaine's son took a step closer to her. "Mom, are we in trouble?" he whispered. She looked down at him, her expression heartbreakingly calm. "No, sweetheart, not us." The guard stepped forward awkwardly, gesturing toward the door. "Ma'am, please." Elaine held her son's hand, turned slowly, and began walking toward the exit. Her heels clicked against the marble, sharp, steady, and deliberate. Every step echoed with dignity, even as humiliation swirled around her. Behind her, Clarkson muttered under his breath, "Unbelievable. People these days think they can just walk into any hotel and make demands." The receptionist laughed quietly. She even used the CEO's name. "Can you imagine?" Elaine stopped in her tracks for a brief moment. Her reflection shimmered on the polished marble floor beneath her feet. For a split second, the calm mask cracked, not in anger, but in pain. Her son looked up at her. "Mom," she blinked, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Let's go, baby." As they stepped through the revolving doors, the whispers began again, hushed, judgmental, cruel. One woman in a red dress leaned toward her companion. "Can you believe the nerve? Trying to scam her way into this place." Her companion smirked. "They always try to act rich." Outside, the sun was blinding. Elaine took a long breath, her hand never leaving her son's. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just stood there, silent, still, her composure holding back a storm. Her son looked up again, confused. "Why didn't you tell them who you are, Mom? Why didn't you just show them?" Elaine looked down at him with a small, sorrowful smile. "Because, my love, sometimes it's more powerful to let people show you who they really are first." The car door opened. Her driver, James, stepped out, confusion written across his face. "Madam Porter, what happened? Why are you back so soon?" Elaine's tone was ice-wrapped in velvet. "They didn't recognize me, James. Or maybe they did, and didn't care." James's jaw clenched. "Do you want me to?" She raised her hand gently, cutting him off. "Not yet." Her eyes drifted back to the tall glass doors of the hotel lobby. Through them, she could see Clarkson laughing with the receptionist, their arrogance almost glowing under the golden lights. And then, for the first time, the calm in her eyes shifted, not into anger, but into something colder. "Resolve, James," she said softly. "Pull up the hotel's internal camera feed." He nodded instantly, pulling out his tablet. As the live footage loaded, the sound of their laughter filled the air, sharp, mocking, cruel. Elaine watched in silence, her face unreadable. Her son tugged at her sleeve again. "Mom." She placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice quiet but firm. "Go sit in the car, honey." Mommy just remembered something important she has to do. And as the boy climbed into the back seat, the camera lingered on Elaine's reflection in the car window. Elegant, but burning with silent fire, the kind of fire that doesn't explode. It calculates. Inside, Clarkson was still talking, still laughing, still unaware that the woman he'd just thrown out wasn't just another guest. She was his boss's boss, and she was about to return. Not as a guest, not as a mother, but as the woman who owned everything he stood on. The city breeze brushed against Elaine's face as she stood by the curb, her son now seated quietly in the car. The golden reflections of the hotel's glass facade shimmered on her eyes. The same building that bore her family's name, the same empire she had built from nothing. Behind her, her driver and longtime assistant, James, approached with visible concern. "Madam Chairwoman," he said in a low, urgent voice. "Are you all right?" That title, Madam Chairwoman, hung in the air like thunder after lightning. It carried weight, power, and revelation. For the first time, the audience, and anyone watching from the outside, understood who she truly was. Elaine Porter wasn't just another guest. She was the founder, owner, and visionary behind the Porter Group of hotels. The woman they had just thrown out was their boss? Elaine turned her gaze toward James. Her tone was calm, but there was a storm brewing underneath. "I'm fine," she said softly. "But apparently, my staff has forgotten who they work for." James's jaw tightened. "Do you want me to call corporate?" She shook her head. "No. I want to see it for myself." She extended her hand, and James placed a sleek tablet in her palm. Within seconds, the hotel's internal surveillance feed flickered to life. A perk of being the owner. Cameras from every corner of the building appeared on screen. Elaine navigated to the lobby feed. What she saw made her chest tighten. The manager, Clarkson, stood at the reception counter, laughing with the receptionist. "I told you," he chuckled. "These people think they can walk in anywhere if they're dressed nicely enough." The receptionist giggled, flipping her hair. The nerve. Claiming she was Elaine Porter. "Please, the real Elaine Porter doesn't need to check in." Clarkson smirked. "Exactly. The real Elaine Porter probably doesn't even set foot in her hotels. She's too rich for that." Elaine's grip on the tablet tightened, her knuckles whitening. For a moment, she said nothing, only watched in another corner of the feed. She saw her image captured by a lobby camera, her walking out, hand in hand with her son, heads held high. Clarkson and the receptionist pointed at the screen and laughed. "Look at that," Clarkson sneered. "Walking out like she's in a movie, what a show." Elaine's reflection flickered across the tablet screen, but behind that reflection, her expression shifted from quiet disbelief to something far colder. She exhaled slowly. "They think this is a game," she whispered. James stepped closer. "Ma'am, should I have security detain them?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not yet." She closed the tablet with a soft click and looked back at the hotel, her hotel. For years, she had trusted her staff to uphold the values she built her empire on. Dignity, inclusivity, respect. And now, right there before her eyes, it had all been mocked. Her son's reflection appeared faintly in the car window, innocent, confused, unaware of the full depth of what just happened. And that sight made the fire in her chest burn hotter. "James," she said firmly, her voice sharpening, "get in touch with legal. I want a full personnel report from this branch. Every manager, every employee, every complaint record from the past 6 months." He nodded instantly. "Right away, ma'am, and tell communications to prepare a public statement," she added. "We'll need it soon." James hesitated. "Are you sure you want to handle this personally?" Elaine's gaze didn't leave the hotel. "Oh, I'm very sure," she said. "They kicked me out of my own home. I'm going to walk back in and remind them whose name is on that building." There was a pause, the kind that carries both power and promise. She turned slightly, the wind lifting a strand of her hair. Her reflection merged with the towering hotel behind her, a poetic symmetry of power and pain. James opened the car door for her. "Should I call ahead and inform the board?" She shook her head with a small, knowing smile. "No need. Let's keep this between us for now. I want to see their faces when they realize." As the car engine started, Elaine sat in silence, the city's hum fading behind tinted glass. Her mind was racing, not with anger, but with precision. Every scene from the past 10 minutes replayed in her head. The laughter, the insults, her son's confusion. It wasn't humiliation anymore. It was motivation. Inside the lobby, the staff continued their shift, blissfully unaware. Clarkson stood proudly at the counter, straightening his tie, bragging to another guest about how he handled a disruptive visitor. If only he knew that every word, every sneer, every arrogant laugh had been recorded and sent straight to the company's servers. Back in the car, Elaine leaned back, exhaling slowly. She whispered almost to herself, "They've forgotten what respect looks like. Time to remind them." James glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Heading back, ma'am." Elaine's lips curved into a faint, icy smile. "Yes," she said. "But this time, I'm not coming back as a guest." The car made a smooth U-turn, the hotel's golden logo glowing brighter as they approached again. The same security guard who had escorted her out earlier now stood by the door. his face pale as he recognized the returning vehicle. Elaine stepped out gracefully, her heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown. Each step was calm, deliberate, the walk of someone who no longer needed to prove power. Because she was power. The staff didn't know it yet, but in a matter of minutes, everything inside those glass walls, their jobs, their hierarchy, their arrogance was about to collapse. And as she reached the door, she glanced once at the reflection of herself and whispered under her breath, "Now, let's finish what they started." The hum of the city fades into a soft piano note, and suddenly, we're back in time. Years earlier, a young woman in her 20s walks down a rain-soaked street, clutching a folder of hotel designs against her chest. Her shoes are worn, her umbrella broken, yet her eyes are alive with fire. She steps into a towering glass building, her reflection caught between raindrops and ambition. Inside, 3 men in suits glance up, uninterested. One whispers, "She's early again." Another smirks. She straightens her posture, wipes the rain from her face, and walks toward the boardroom. "Good morning, gentlemen. I'm here to present the Windsor Blue Hotel proposal." The man at the head of the table barely looks at her. "We've reviewed your file, Miss Johnson. Is it? Your idea is ambitious. But let's be realistic." He leans back, smirking. "A luxury brand led by someone like you. Investors won't take that seriously." For a brief moment, silence. Then, she smiles, not out of politeness, but defiance. "With respect, sir," she replies. "They said the same thing about every innovator before success proved them wrong." A low chuckle fills the room. "You'll learn, Miss Johnson. Vision is one thing, but this industry isn't built for dreamers." She walks out quietly, but her footsteps echo with something deeper than disappointment. It's the sound of a promise being born. Weeks later, we see her working late nights in a cramped apartment, papers everywhere. Her son, barely a toddler, sleeping beside her desk. She whispers as she types, "One day, baby, they'll know your mama didn't quit." The glow of the computer screen lights her face, tired, determined, unstoppable. She meets rejection after rejection. Banks turn her down. Investors refuse to listen. Landlords laugh when she mentions owning hotels. Yet every no becomes her fuel. Every slammed door, another spark. Then one day a breakthrough. She stands before a small community bank. Her final chance. The elderly banker listens carefully, eyes narrowing, not in doubt, but in curiosity. "You really believe people will pay for comfort and kindness?" he asks. She nods. "Yes, sir. Because people remember how they were treated more than the bed they slept in." He studies her, then smiles faintly. "You remind me of myself when I started. Let's give your dream a chance." The pen hits the paper. A loan is signed, and history begins. Montage. Her first property, a small neglected motel on the city's edge. She paints the walls herself, scrubs the floors with her own hands, greets every guest at the door. "Welcome," she says to an elderly couple one night. "We're honored to have you." Word spreads. Within months, that once forgotten place becomes a local gem. Review headlines call it the friendliest hotel in town. Soon, journalists start asking, "Who is this woman redefining hospitality?" She answers softly, "In every interview, I'm just creating the kind of place I wish existed when I started, where everyone belongs." Years roll by. Her empire grows from one small property to a chain of hotels across the country. Conference rooms that once rejected her now display her portrait on the wall. The same men who doubted her attend her launches, smiling, pretending they always believed. But she remembers. She remembers everything. At her flagship hotel's grand opening, she takes the stage in a silver gown, lights glimmering around her. Cameras flash. The audience quiets. Her voice, calm but commanding, fills the room. Every guest deserves respect, no matter who they are, what they look like, or where they come from. That's the promise this brand was built on. Thunderous applause follows. Her son, now a teenager, stands proudly beside her. The flashback fades. Back in the present, she sits inside her car, outside the hotel, the very same chain she built with her own hands. The city lights shimmer on the windshield as her reflection stares back at her. She unlocks her phone, opens a video. It's her own voice from that very same speech years ago. Every guest deserves respect. Her eyes narrow. The corners of her lips tighten. Outside, the neon sign of the hotel glows Windsor Blue Luxury. Her creation, her empire. And tonight, they forgot who she was. She sets the phone down, her expression firming into resolve. Then, quietly, let's remind them. The car engine hums to life as she signals her driver. The camera lingers on her reflection. No longer the dreamer. No longer the rejected woman, but a leader returning to reclaim her throne. The hotel's glass doors slide open, the same doors that closed behind her humiliation just 9 minutes earlier. But this time, things are different. Outside, the sound of engines breaks the stillness of the evening. One sleek black SUV pulls up, then another, and another. A convoy, polished, deliberate, and powerful. The valet stumbles, confused, as tinted windows lower in perfect synchronization. From the first vehicle, her driver steps out, opening the door with quiet reverence. And then she appears. The same woman who was moments ago dismissed as a problem guest now steps onto the marble driveway like she owns the earth beneath it, because she does. She's no longer in casual travel clothes. She's transformed. A tailored black suit hugs her silhouette, the glint of a diamond brooch catching the light as she moves. Behind her, her assistant follows, phone in hand, earpiece blinking. 2 members of her executive board flank her, their expressions cold and controlled, and just a few steps behind them, a media crew, cameras already rolling. Whispers ripple through the entrance. The receptionist freezes midst. The manager, the same one who accused her of causing a scene, watches, his jaw slack, as the woman he mocked strides toward him without breaking eye contact. The air feels different now. He feels it. Everyone does. She doesn't speak immediately. The sound of her heels against marble is enough. Each step, measured, commanding, final. Finally, she stops at the front desk. The same place she stood before. "Good evening," she says softly, voice calm yet cutting. "I'd like to see your general manager." The receptionist swallows hard. Ma'am, I know exactly who he is." She interrupts, eyes never leaving the trembling woman. "Call him." Within seconds, the manager appears, flushed, stammering, fake smile in place. "Good evening, ma'am. Welcome back. I apologize for earlier. We had a bit of a..." She raises her hand, and he stops mid-sentence. "Save it," she says. "This isn't a welcome, it's an audit." The assistant beside her whispers into a mic. Behind them, the media crew begins recording. "Gather the staff," she continues. "Everyone in the lobby, now." The words hit the air like thunder. Guests peek over balconies. The staff exchange nervous glances. Housekeepers, bellboys, and receptionists gather in front of her, their faces pale. The woman scans the room slowly. Her voice, calm but commanding, fills the silence. "Earlier tonight, I walked into this hotel, my hotel, as a guest. I wanted to see how my employees treat people when they don't recognize the name on the building." A collective gasp. Someone drops a clipboard. The receptionist covers her mouth. The manager tries to interject, voice trembling. "Miss Johnson, I chairwoman," she corrects, her gaze slicing through him. "You can call me Madam Chairwoman." The camera zooms in on his face, beads of sweat glistening under the chandelier light. She continues, every word precise. "I built this brand from nothing, from one tiny motel that everyone said would fail. And I built it on a single promise that every guest, no matter their race, their clothes, or their background, would be treated with dignity." Her assistant steps forward, holding out a tablet. On screen, the security footage plays. The lobby, the laughter, the mocking, every second of disrespect, now projected on the big digital display behind the front desk. The staff watch in horror as their own actions loop before their eyes. The manager steps back, stuttering. "Tease, this isn't what it looks like, ma'am." They were. She doesn't even look at him. "I know exactly what it looks like." Her tone lowers, quieter now, but sharper, more personal. "When you humiliated me, you didn't just insult a guest. You insulted every value this company stands for. You insulted me." A tense silence grips the room. Even the air feels heavy. She turns slightly, addressing the staff as a whole. "Respect doesn't start when cameras roll. It starts in moments like this, when no one's watching. And tonight, you all showed me who you are." Her gaze lingers on the receptionist, then the manager. "Security," she says calmly, "escort them out." 2 security guards, her personal team, not hotel staff, step forward immediately. The manager begins to plead, voice cracking. "Please, Madam Chairwoman, I've been here for years. It was a misunderstanding." She tilts her head slightly, studying him. "So was mine," she replies, her voice cold as glass. "You misunderstood who I was." The guards lead him out. His voice fades into the distance. Drowned beneath the whispering crowd, the CEO looks around the lobby one last time, the chandeliers reflecting off her eyes like fire. "To everyone remaining," she says, "you have one choice. Remember what this brand stands for, or find another place to work. Effective immediately, this location is under direct review. I'll be staying here as a guest." Gasps ripple through the room again. Her assistant nods, already pulling out documents for her signature. The CEO turns toward the cameras, her voice steady for the world watching. "This isn't revenge, it's accountability." Then, she takes her son's hand, the same boy who stood by her when they were kicked out, and walks past the stunned employees toward the elevator. The doors close behind her, a soft ding echoing in the silence. Down in the lobby, the remaining staff stare at one another, shaken and speechless. Above them, the digital screen freezes on her final words from earlier, captured perfectly from the live feed. "Every guest deserves respect, no matter who they are." The scene fades, leaving the echo of her footsteps, not angry, not loud, just the sound of quiet power reclaiming its place. The lobby is silent. Every whisper, every nervous shuffle of feet, fades beneath the weight of one woman's calm authority. Moments ago, she had walked back into this hotel as the chairwoman. Now, she stands at the center of the marble floor, a circle of trembling employees surrounding her. Cameras are rolling, lights glaring. What was once a quiet five-star lobby now feels like a courtroom, and she is both judge and witness. She folds her hands in front of her, posture regal, voice steady. "All right," she says softly, but the words cut through the silence like thunder. "Let's start with honesty. Who was the first person to tell me I didn't belong here?" A hush. No one moves. Then, the receptionist, the young woman who had mocked her earlier, steps forward, hands trembling, eyes down. I did, ma'am. I thought you were an outsider." The CEO finishes. The woman nods, tears welling. The CEO tilts her head, voice even. "Tell me, what made you think that?" The receptionist hesitates. "You didn't look like the kind of guest we usually get." A soft, audible gasp ripples through the onlookers. The CEO's eyes narrow, not in anger, but in deep disappointment. "The kind of guest you usually get," she repeats slowly. "And what kind is that?" The woman shakes her head, words failing. The CEO steps closer, her tone calm but edged with power. "Let me make this clear. You didn't judge me by my reservation. You didn't even check my name. You judged me the moment I walked through those doors." She glances at the cameras. "And that's exactly what's wrong with this industry and with this world." The media crew zooms in. Her expression is unflinching, her voice unwavering. "When I founded this company," she continues, "I wanted every hotel under this brand to be a place where people felt seen, valued, and respected. I told my staff, and I'll repeat it now, our walls may be made of marble, but our foundation is built on dignity." Her eyes shift toward the manager, standing behind the crowd, trying to blend in. "Mr. Collins," she calls, voice sharp. "Step forward." He hesitates, then obeys. The crowd parts as he approaches, his confident stride from earlier now reduced to a nervous shuffle. She folds her arms. "Earlier tonight, you accused me of causing a scene. You dismissed me in front of my child, your staff, and several guests. Would you like to explain yourself?" He opens his mouth, trying to smile. "Madam Chairwoman, I didn't recognize you. I thought you were another upset customer." And she raises a hand. "And so your instinct was to belittle me, to escalate the situation instead of de-escalate." He swallows hard. "No, you told me." She interrupts, voice rising just enough. "Maybe this isn't the kind of hotel for you. Do you remember saying that?" He nods, faintly. The CEO takes a slow breath, letting the silence stretch. "You were right about one thing, Mr. Collins. This isn't the kind of hotel for me, because I don't belong in a place where respect is optional." The room freezes. Every head drops slightly. The camera pans slowly across faces. The guilt, the shame, the dawning realization. She continues, voice softer now, almost reflective. "When I started in this business, people laughed at me. A young black woman trying to build a luxury brand. They said I'd never get investors, never get guests, never be taken seriously." She pauses, her voice tightening with emotion. "But I did. I built something extraordinary, not because I was welcome in rooms like this, but because I made a place where everyone could be." Her gaze sweeps the room again, firm and unrelenting. "And today, my own staff forgot that promise." The receptionist sobs quietly. The bellboy shifts uncomfortably. The manager's eyes glisten, jaw clenched tight. The CEO steps forward again, lowering her tone. "I don't need apologies. I need accountability." She turns to her assistant. "Play the footage." The large monitor behind the front desk lights up again, a split screen of the security feeds from earlier that evening. There she is, standing at the counter. Calm, patient, polite. There's the staff whispering, rolling eyes. The manager stepping in. And finally, the moment they escort her out, her young son glancing back, confused and afraid. The footage stops. The silence afterward is deafening. The CEO faces the staff again. "That's what the world will see," she says quietly. "That's what your actions look like when you think no one's watching." She walks slowly past the rows of employees, her heels echoing like a heartbeat against the floor. "We can't control who walks through our doors, but we can control how we treat them. And tonight, you all forgot that." The manager lowers his head. "I'm sorry, Madam Chairwoman. I was wrong." She nods slightly. "You are and because of that, you'll be stepping down, effective immediately." He looks crushed, but says nothing. She faces the others. "As for the rest of you, some of you will stay, but not without retraining, not without understanding that this company isn't built on luxury. It's built on values." Her assistant begins taking notes as she speaks. Then she turns back to the cameras, her tone shifting from corporate authority to moral weight. "I want the world to see this moment, not because it embarrasses us, but because it teaches us. This is what happens when prejudice goes unchecked. When kindness takes a backseat to ego." She looks directly into the lens, her expression strong, yet human. "This hotel was built on dignity, and today, some of you threw that away." Her final words hang in the air, like a verdict. Then, she exhales a slow, measured breath. Around her, staff begin to wipe tears. The same people who mocked her now stand in silent remorse. Finally, she turns toward her son, who's been watching from a distance. He looks up at her, proud, wide-eyed. She smiles softly and takes his hand. "Let's go upstairs, Sweetheart, it's been a long day. They begin to walk toward the elevator, her son glancing back at the staff one last time. The camera follows their reflection in the polished floor, a symbol of grace, reclaiming power. The elevator doors slide shut, leaving behind a lobby filled with silence, regret, and hard-earned lessons. And as the screen fades to black, her final line echoes once more, calm, firm, unforgettable. Dignity isn't a luxury, it's the foundation. The lobby is still. A heavy silence hangs in the air, the kind that feels like the calm before a storm, but the manager stands frozen, his palms trembling, his lips parting with a desperate plea. Please, Madam Chairwoman, I didn't mean any harm. I just thought. The CEO turns, her face unreadable. Her voice is calm, but it carries the kind of authority that stops time. You thought wrong, Mr. Collins. You thought prejudice was professionalism. You thought disrespect was policy. He swallows hard, stepping forward. I can fix this. I can make it right. Please don't do this. I've worked here for 15 years. She cuts him off, her tone colder now. 15 years should have taught you respect, not arrogance. A murmur spreads through the crowd. Guests whisper among themselves. Phones raised. Recording every second. The CEO glances toward the front desk, where the receptionist and bellboy stand pale and speechless. She looks each of them in the eye. And you laughed. You mocked. You followed his lead. The young woman bursts into tears. Please, ma'am, I didn't mean to. The CEO doesn't yell. She doesn't need to. Her words slice through the air with precision. Intentions don't erase impact. I don't need apologies. I need accountability. The room holds its breath. She turns back to the manager. Her gaze is unwavering. Mr. Collins, as of this moment, you are relieved of your duties. Hand over your access card and leave this property immediately. He stands, frozen, disbelief flooding his face. You're firing me? Her voice doesn't rise. It doesn't waver. Yes, she says simply, you're fired. The words hit like thunder. Gasps ripple through the room. The media cameras zoom in, flashes bursting across the marble walls. Guests begin whispering louder now, some nodding, some even smiling. The manager stumbles back, speechless, his arrogance, his confidence, all gone. Security steps forward, her own executive security. Not his, and takes his badge. He tries one last time, his voice cracking. Please, you can't do this in front of everyone. She looks him dead in the eye. I must do this in front of everyone, because humiliation was fine when it was me, wasn't it? He lowers his head, defeated. I'm sorry. She nods slightly. I hope you mean that. Then, she gestures toward the staff who joined in the mockery earlier. And the rest of you who stood by who thought silence was safety, you're dismissed too. Effective immediately. The shock is immediate. The bellboy's eyes widen. The housekeeper gasps softly. The receptionist's knees nearly give out. One of them steps forward. Please, Madam Chairwoman, I have a family. The CEO's expression softens just a touch. And so do I, she says, and tonight, you humiliated mine. The woman lowers her head in shame. For a moment, the CEO closes her eyes, collecting herself, breathing through the storm inside her. She doesn't enjoy this. Justice rarely feels like joy. It feels like weight necessary, heavy, and honest. When she opens her eyes again, the lobby feels smaller, quieter. I don't fire people because they make mistakes. She continues, voice softer now. I fire people who forget why they work here. Who forget that every guest who walks through that door is a human being before they are a customer. Her assistant steps closer, handing her a tablet. She scrolls, briefly, the screen reflecting in her eyes. Before she nods and signs off the termination notices, it's done. The manager and staff slowly gather their things, escorted toward the exit. No one cheers yet. No one dares. It's a moment to rob. Too powerful. But then a single clap breaks the silence. It comes from an elderly guest seated near the lobby fountain. Then another clap. And another. Within seconds, the sound grows, a wave of applause swelling through the room. Guests begin standing, clapping, not out of amusement, but respect. Respect for a woman who refused to bow. Her son, standing a few feet away, watches it all with wide eyes. His small hands grip the strap of his backpack, his face glowing with pride. He looks up at her and whispers, Mom, they're clapping for you. She looks down, a small smile tugging at her lips. No, sweetheart, she says softly. They're clapping for what's right. He smiles back, a smile that mirrors hers, filled with quiet strength. The manager pauses by the door, turns once more toward her, and whispers, You'll regret this. But she doesn't even glance his way. She only says, quietly but firmly, The only thing I'd regret is staying silent. He leaves. The doors close behind him with a heavy thud. Final. Absolute. For a few moments, she stands still, letting the applause wash over her. The tension that had gripped the room melts into something else. Admiration, maybe even hope. Her voice carries once more, clear and resonant. Let this be a reminder. Every person you meet could be someone extraordinary. So treat everyone like they matter. Because they do. The staff who remain, those who hadn't joined the mockery, bow their heads. A few wipe away tears. They understand now. Her assistant steps forward again. Madam Chairwoman, he says quietly. The press is waiting outside. She nods, glancing toward the tall glass doors that lead to the street. Beyond them, flashes burst and cameras crowd, waiting to catch every second. She adjusts her blazer, takes her son's hand, and begins walking. The crowd parts instantly. As she walks through the lobby, the same floor where she'd once been insulted and turned away, heads turned. But this time, not in judgment, in awe. Her heels echo against the marble, sharp and rhythmic, like the sound of justice itself. One of the guests leans toward another and whispers, "That's her, the CEO, the woman they kicked out." And the other replies, shaking their head, "Not just a woman, a force." Outside, the flashes grow brighter. Cameras click. Journalists shout questions. She doesn't answer. She only holds her son's hand tighter, her expression calm, regal. Even as they reach the waiting SUV, her son looks up and asks softly, "Mom, are they all fired?" She smiles faintly, opening the car door. "No," she says, "only the ones who forgot their humanity." He nods, understanding in a way that feels beyond his years. They step into the car. The door closes. From inside, she looks once more toward the hotel, her creation, her pride, her lesson. And as the car pulls away, the last image we see is her reflection in the window. Strong, composed, unbroken. Her voice, steady and sure, echoes one final line as the screen fades to black. Power doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've always been. The night after the storm was calm, but inside the hotel's conference room, a different kind of energy filled the air. Quiet, uncertain, hopeful. The CEO stood at the head of a long mahogany table. Around her sat the remaining staff, housekeepers, concierges, chefs, bellboys, all waiting, unsure of what would come next. The echoes of the day still lingered. The firings, the headlines, the applause. She took a slow breath, letting the silence settle. Then, she spoke. "Today was painful," she began, her tone even, deliberate. "Not because people were fired, but because it reminded us how easily dignity can be forgotten." The room stayed still. No one dared interrupt. She walked slowly along the table, her heels clicking softly against the floor. "I built this hotel not just to serve guests," she continued, "but to serve values, respect, humility, and grace. Somewhere along the line, we lost that. But tonight, we start over." A few eyes lifted, some filled with guilt, others with quiet resolve. She turned toward the screen behind her. The company's motto glowed in golden letters, "Service with Heart." "Starting tomorrow," she said, "every member of this team will undergo retraining, not just in service but in humanity. You'll learn what it means to see people, not positions. To serve with empathy, not ego." A young bellboy raised his hand, hesitating. "Ma'am, will there be changes in leadership too?" Her gaze softened. "Yes," she said, "leadership must lead by example. And that begins now." She turned toward the back of the room, where a quiet man in a worn uniform sat, hands clasped, unsure why he'd been invited. It was the janitor. The same man who, earlier that day, had tried to stop the mistreatment before it escalated. "Mr. Davis," she said, nodding toward him, "please, stand up." The man looked startled. "Me? Mom? Yes, you." He rose slowly, eyes darting around the room. "I was just doing my job, ma'am." "I didn't mean," she interrupted gently. "You did more than your job. You did what was right, and this hotel needs more of that." The staff watched in silence as she walked toward him, holding a small envelope. "From today," she said, her voice carrying through the room, "you are no longer a janitor. You are the new assistant operations supervisor. Congratulations, Mr. Davis." A stunned hush filled the air. Then, one by one, people began to clap. Softly at first, then louder. Tears welled in the man's eyes. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep standing up for what's right," she replied. He nodded, emotion thick in his throat. "Always." She smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That's all I need to hear." The applause continued, not for the promotion itself, but for what it meant. For the first time in a long time, the hotel staff saw that integrity mattered more than titles. As the sound faded, she looked around the room. "This is our chance," she said, "to rebuild, to redefine what we stand for. Every guest who walks through that door must feel respect, because respect isn't given, it's practiced." A few of the younger employees exchanged glances, inspired, energized. Her voice softened. "I know some of you were scared today. Scared of losing your jobs? Scared of speaking up? But silence isn't safety, it's surrender. And in this place, we don't surrender to injustice, we correct it." She paused, letting her words sink deep. Then she added, "If we want this hotel to rise again, we'll need to start with truth. So tomorrow morning, we'll hold open forums, no ranks, no titles, just conversations. I want to hear your stories, your ideas, your hearts." A soft murmur of agreement spread across the room. From the corner, her assistant asked, "Ma'am, do you want the press to be invited?" She thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No, not yet. Let's rebuild in silence and let our results make the noise. A few smiled at that. She stepped back toward the table, resting her palms on the polished wood. I don't expect perfection, she said. I expect progress. I expect empathy. And I expect every person here to remember, this hotel isn't about wealth. It's about worth. The words hung in the air, powerful and clear. Across the table, a young front desk trainee whispered to her colleague, "It feels like a new beginning." And indeed, it did. The CEO glanced toward the windows, the city lights reflecting in the glass like tiny stars. By morning, she said quietly, the world will still be talking about what happened today. But when they come back to stay here, they'll see what change looks like. Her assistant nodded. We'll start setting up the training materials tonight. Good, she said, and make sure the slogan goes back up on every wall. People need to see it. As the meeting came to an end, the staff began to rise, a different energy now filling the room. Determination. Unity. Pride. Before anyone could leave, she called out softly, one more thing. They turned back. She smiled gently. Tomorrow, when you see a guest, smile for real. Not because you're paid to, but because you mean it. That's how we rebuild. Her words drew warm nods and quiet smiles. The people who had once worked out of fear were now ready to work with purpose. As the last of them filed out, she lingered for a moment, alone in the conference room. She ran her fingers across the engraved motto on the wall, Service with Heart. A small smile touched her lips. It starts again, she whispered. Outside, the hotel lights glowed brighter than they had in years, as if the building itself was breathing again. Down the hall, Mr. Davis stood with a mop still in his hand, staring at his new name badge, disbelief turning into pride. And in her office, the CEO watched the security feed, seeing her team move with a sense of purpose she hadn't seen in a long time. It wasn't perfection yet, but it was a beginning. Hervoice.com. Thoughtful closes the chapter. A company doesn't fall because of mistakes. It falls when it forgets its soul. Tonight, we found ours again. The city was quiet that night. From the top floor of the Grand Hotel, the skyline shimmered, glass towers reflecting the golden glow of justice restored. The world outside carried on, unaware of the transformation that had just taken place within these walls. Inside, the CEO suite, her suite, the woman finally sat down. The weight of the day lingered in her shoulders, yet her posture remained poised, graceful. Her son sat beside her on the soft velvet couch, small hands clutching a cup of hot chocolate the butler had brought moments ago. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Only the soft hum of the city and the distant echo of elevators broke the silence. Then the boy turned toward her, his voice small but thoughtful. Mom, yes, sweetheart. He hesitated. Why didn't you shout at them when they were rude to us? The question hung in the air like a slow echo. She looked at him, really looked at the innocence in his eyes, the confusion behind them. She smiled gently, her reflection glimmering faintly in the window behind him. Because, my love, she said softly, power isn't about shouting. He blinked, puzzled, but they were wrong. They embarrassed you. You could have yelled, "You're the boss." She chuckled faintly, not out of amusement, but reflection. Yes, I am, but if I had shouted, what lesson would that have taught them? That anger is power. She leaned closer, brushing a hand through his hair. True power, she said, is staying calm when everyone else loses control. It's showing who you are without losing who you are. Her words lingered, warm and measured. The boy sipped his drink, his young mind processing the weight behind them. So, you showed them by not fighting. She smiled again. No, baby. I showed them by leading, by reminding them what respect looks like, even when they forgot it themselves. The boy's eyes widened a little, like when you made that man apologize. Exactly, she nodded. I didn't humiliate him. I held him accountable. There's a difference. Silence settled again. The city lights danced across the glass like falling stars. The boy placed his cup down, curling up closer to her. You weren't scared? He asked quietly. She looked out toward the skyline, her eyes tracing the horizon. Of course, I was, she admitted. Being calm doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you don't let fear decide your actions. He watched her for a long moment, his young face filled with admiration. I want to be like you when I grow up. She turned to him, her voice tender. Then promise me one thing. What? No matter how high you rise, never forget where you started, and never treat anyone as less than you. Respect isn't earned by status, it's earned by character. The boy nodded, his expression firm despite his age. I promise. A gentle knock came at the door. Her assistant stepped in quietly. Ma'am, the board meeting for tomorrow is confirmed. Also, the press is requesting a statement. She thought for a moment, then replied, tell them. Justice was served quietly, and let the results speak for themselves. The assistant smiled faintly, nodded, and left them alone again. Her son looked up. Are you going to fire more people tomorrow? She shook her head. No, today wasn't about revenge. It was about correction. The rest, we rebuild. He seemed to think deeply about that. So, when people hurt you, you don't hurt them back. Her eyes softened. Hurting them won't heal you, but standing tall will remind them that they can't break you. She looked at him, really looked. The soft light of the chandelier above framed his small, curious face. In that moment, she wasn't the CEO of a global brand. She was just a mother, teaching her son what legacy truly meant. He leaned against her arm. "Mom, will people still like your hotel?" "They will," she said quietly, "because from tomorrow, it will be run by people who understand kindness. And kindness," she smiled faintly, "is the best kind of luxury." He grinned at that, proud and sleepy. "That sounds fancy." She laughed softly. "It is." The room grew still again. Outside, the moonlight bathed the skyline in a pale silver glow. Down below, the hotel staff worked late into the night, preparing for the morning's retraining. For the first time in months, there was harmony in the air, a sense of purpose reborn. Her son's eyes grew heavy, his head resting against her shoulder. "Mom," he murmured, half-asleep. "Yes. Do you think they'll be nicer now?" She looked out over the city once more. The reflection of the two of them glimmered faintly in the glass. Mother and son, side by side, framed by the lights of the empire she built from nothing. "I think they'll understand," she said softly. "Sometimes, people forget what respect means, until they're reminded who taught it." The boy didn't reply. His breathing slowed. He had fallen asleep, peace finally replacing confusion. She sat still for a long time, watching the city stretch endlessly below, its heartbeat steady, alive. In the distance, a new dawn began to tease the horizon, faint streaks of gold breaking through the darkness. She whispered to herself, almost inaudibly, "We don't rise by shouting. We rise by standing tall." And with that, she kissed her son's forehead, turned off the lights, and let the night cradle them both, a mother and her child, resting in the quiet glow of victory earned with grace. Outside, the hotel sign shimmered brighter than ever before, not just a name, but a promise reborn.